Sophomore Miles Brennan will take the snap. Stands in the pocket, has time, lets it go. Going to be caught by McMahon. Breaks away from a defender at about the 48, and racing down the far sideline will take it for the score. 58-yard touchdown reception by Racey McMath, the junior out of New Orleans. His third touchdown of the season. Miles Brennan, by the way. Takes the snap, takes a knee. The clock begins to run with 45 seconds and counting. And the 50-7 score here tonight. A victory margin of 43. The highest ever in series history for LSU against Texas A&M. The previous margin, 37-0 by the Tigers way back in 1971. It's all over with. Both teams now will exit the sidelines, meet at midfield. Jimbo Fisher and Ed Ogeron. It's an early night for both of those here in 2019 as the final seconds roll off the clock here at Tiger Stadium.
That was the final 50-7 as LSU takes care of Texas A&M in the season finale, the regular season finale. That night, LSU football improved to 12-0, had a conference record of 8-0, gathered the SEC Western Division. They had wrapped up the Western Division Championship, but off to Atlanta to represent the West for their next game versus Georgia. This is the game that they circled. This is the one that they thought about all season long. For as much as we talked about every big game yesterday, and we asked Joe Burrow, their standout Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, if Alabama was the biggest win of the season. He kind of laughed at it in the moment, but just said, after that, let's just put it this way, we were never going to get beat. They played in big games all season long. They had 7 top 10 wins, but to me, this is the one that almost meant the most.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is the one that was a bit personal. And when you look at Joe Burrow and you look at the journey that he's been on since he got to LSU, Jordy, a lot of people point to that UCF game. They point to him getting lit up in that UCF game, and then what he did afterwards in the Fiesta Bowl as being like the kind of moment where Burrow arrived. I think you go even before then. The A&M game is when it felt like Burrow was really starting to realize what he could do statistically, get on the same page, and the coaches are figuring out how much they could put on his shoulders. And that A&M battle, 7 overtimes, where he's running constantly, just completely dog-tired, dead-tired, and to lose in the manner that they did, where they felt like they got kind of robbed, and then A&M makes rings that have the score on them. They make cups that have the score on them. Like LSU felt a bit cheated, and they had a year to stew in that. And so if that was kind of the beginning of Burrow's journey to that Heisman, this was almost like the end cap. And it's just so funny, a game that we thought would be very competitive coming into the year. By the time these two teams matched up, it wasn't even close. This was one of the biggest ass whippings I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it was lopsided from this time that this thing kicked off. 50-7 was the final. Joe Burrow on the night, 23 of 32 for 352 yards and 3 scores. It was the night that you'll remember, I guess, from the run out on senior night from Burrow and his jersey, Burreaux, with him pointing to the name before the kickoff and the place just going bananas, man. I mean, I can remember 30 years of football in Tiger Stadium. I mean, I can go back about 30 years. I'm 39 years old, so around 9 or 10, I can still remember some of my first images of watching football in that stadium. And that night, that scene with Burrow pregame is as crazy as I can ever recall. And I've seen him, like, I've been in there for wild times. I hate to speak in hyperbole in this job, the best ever, the best night. That was the top one, but it felt a little different when he was running out and when the people were just raining down the love on him. I mean, it was as special as a moment that Tiger Stadium has captured outside of a football game with no action happening on the field that I've ever been a part of.
Well, and if you're watching the video online right now, you can see in the background the camera. Shout out to Matt Turnquist, because that Scorsese-esque tracking shot following Burrow as he runs out the tunnel and hugs his family, it captured the moment perfectly. And it will live on forever in LSU history because of that shot. And so that was all pregame, and there's so much emotion pregame, and him saying, bye to the fans and seeing his family. But in his eyes, if you watch that video,
He's stoic.
the look of the killer remains. Yes, stoic. Jaw is set. Eyes kind of unfocused a bit. Once it looked like he was maybe on the verge of cracking a little bit, he suppressed it and he went out there and he just dominated. LSU had 553 total yards to Texas A&M's 169. It wasn't even close. You basically quadrupled their production. It was just domination beginning in, and it set the tone for the playoff. Like that's what really separated Joe Burrow when you start having conversations about the greatest single season of all time that we've ever seen out of a quarterback. It started with these A&M-like games where he leveraged that into completely dominating the SEC, into completely dominating the playoff, and then he goes on to completely dominate the national championship.
Clyde had a big night as well. 18 carries for 87 yards. He had a touchdown. This played out to be his final game in Tiger Stadium as well. Jamar Chase on the night.
Yeah.
7 catches, 197. Jamar averaged 28 yards per catch.
Another guy who, this is when Jamar Chase had, as the season had gone on, he had started to emerge as the most dominant one-on-one guy. That nobody could stand toe-to-toe with him, and this game just proved that.
7 receivers on the night for Joe Burrow. Kayvon Chassson, his final game in Tiger Stadium, he had a sack and a half, 6 total tackles on the night, so a good defensive effort from Kayvon in his last spot. Jacoby Stevens, Grant Delpit, Kerry Vincent all had interceptions on the evening. It was a dominant performance.
Yeah, I mean, it was
for
revenge.
LSU.
It was year-long revenge, and it's what happens when you have an incredibly focused and incredibly talented team that has that kind of motivational chip to carry around with them all year. And I know it felt good for a lot of people who were very miffed by A&M and like, what's A&M going to say now? And I love that. I mean, it threw A&M to 7-5, a season that they entered with so much expectation. Kellen Mond at SEC Media Days talking about how the LSU guys were tired and their hands were on their hip, and he felt like A&M was in better shape than LSU. Well, you don't have to be in good shape when you win 50-7. Like, that gets you out by the third quarter. You don't need to get it. You're good to go. And then how about that? Miles Brennan with a touchdown toss. I like this stat line. 2 of 4, 73 yards and a score. He actually had a better QBR than Joe Burrow did. 99.9 to 98.3.
And that touchdown goes to Racey McMath, the guy that you asked about yesterday to Mickey Joseph, the LSU wide receivers coach. You know you got Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase as 1 and 2 on the staff, and Chase and Marshall. What happens with number 3? First name out of his mouth was McMath.
Dude, and
that
McMath,
pitch and catch right there, T. That's just a simple hitch.
Well, he looks fast, too. And the move that he puts on the safety, the threat of just cutting inside him and then just blowing by him, yeah, man, I see why Racey is first in line for that third wide receiver position. Also, if that's your 4th guy last season, it shows you how just uber ridiculously talented that group was, as Mickey Joseph talked to.
Ooh, McMath with the little step in.
That's what I'm saying.
Man.
Simple move and then the speed, because you can't pull that off unless you have a lead speed, and he flew by that guy. It looked like he was standing still.
All right, there's your memory of LSU's 2019 season recap. The regular season finale. Next, we'll have the SEC championship, the playoff run versus Oklahoma, and then, of course, the national championship, closing out our revisit of LSU's dream season